One of the things I wanted to emphasise, and it's only almost repeating the things you said, but you talked about, the projects are open and they're critiquing each other, and it's very easy to sort of, say these words, partnership, openness, and everything, and it was yeah. But actually, it was totally genuine. When you attend a CAL meeting and one of the projects comes and says, "Look, this is what we've got. I've got this issue. I want your collective thoughts on how I'm going to deal with it. I haven't been able to do it myself." That's wonderful, and it really is a sort of good demonstration of how open they were actually, and the whole collective sharing thing.
And that was actually sometimes despite what the prevailing culture in their institution might have been.
Indeed.
So that was a pretty brave step, I think, to come out of some of these in front of other institutions and actually say the sorts of things they'd probably be lynched for if they said it in their institution.
The other thing I think, which is quite interesting in some of my projects, there was quite a focus, and one of the kind of key themes of their projects is to do with kind of the creative dialogue, or someone called the creative conversations, and actually how you actually facilitate that, which of course I certainly believe is absolutely hugely important to learning in this day and age. And I think the differences between some of the projects, like one of them was very much focusing on creative conversations in physical spaces. This is Middlesex with their sort of creative conversations around a table like this, where people could write on it, get up and build on other people's ideas. It's been filmed and photographed so they can reflect on it. Whereas the Open University was very much doing a similar thing with their atelier, this idea of sort of a virtual space for the master craftsmen, so to discuss students' work, etc. They try to do almost the same thing, but in a virtual space. And actually, what is really interesting is when you start to compare the two. What are the common aspects of being able to facilitate good creative conversations, and what are sort of specific to a particular medium, like the physical space, or social network, or a live Illuminate session.
Perhaps one of the most important things that has come out of the cluster of projects that I've been working with is the fact that they all genuinely show that technology allows you to do things which are really not possible or practicable by conventional means. And you can pick out different examples of that from the different projects. If you look at G4, which is problem-based learning down at St George's, and the way they've implemented that so that students explore the problem but also see immediate consequences and go down different paths to arrive at hopefully a positive solution to the patient ills, but not necessarily so. And they can see the real kind of consequences of their actions in that. If you look at the online writing lab at Coventry, they're now offering students a flexibility in terms of writing tutorials, both synchronous and asynchronous, which you couldn't get through other means. And if you look at dynamic learning maps up at Newcastle, then I think they've reinvented the virtual learning environment, because what they're offering students is a view of the curriculum, both what they have studied, what they are studying, and what they will study, which you simply cannot get from other technologies. Another thing that I think it comes out of a number of the projects is that we're talking about technology, but it's not necessarily technology that has to be enormously expensive. And the example of that from my cluster would be the online writing lab at Coventry, who were originally starting to work with a proprietary conferencing system which actually didn't work. So they turned to a combination of Skype and Macogo, which is a completely free combination.
And we use that now.
And we use that, yes. So it has transformed our mutual practice. So what more could you ask from a project output?
I think you're right. I think the work too that's emerged in podcasting, for example, from a few of the projects, has shown that you can have a relatively low-cost technology with high impact to the learning experience and to the workload of the academic staff as well.
And the other thing about that is that, again, going back to CAL, is that has encouraged them to experiment with other technologies which aren't necessarily expensive. Like they're now starting to use audio inserts within Microsoft Word, which again is cheap but notoriously well buried in the software until you find it.
This idea